The first thing that felt wrong wasn't the lights. It was the key, my key. It slid into the lock the way it always did, but when I turned it, the bolt didn't click. The door was already unlocked. Inside, a faint smell of perfume and Chardonnay hung in the air. My house looked perfect, spotless, staged, except for the half-full wine glass on the counter and the silk robe draped over my sofa. My robe. Then I heard it. "Gary, someone's here." A woman's voice, sharp, commanding, completely at home. And when she stepped out of the hallway, I froze. It was her. Karen Blake, president of the Silverwood Homeowners Association. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "Who are you? What are you doing in my house?" That was the moment I realized something had gone very, very wrong. Months earlier, when I first moved into Silverwood Estates, I thought I'd found peace. After 15 years in cybersecurity, long nights, glowing monitors, endless threats, I just wanted stillness. Silverwood had that postcard charm: trimmed lawns, white fences, porch swings, the smell of fertilizer and neighborly smiles. The kind of place where people wave at each other and mean it. Or so I thought. Karen showed up on day 3, pearls around her neck, clipboard in hand, that fixed suburban smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Welcome to Silverwood, Mr. Cross," she said. "We're very proud of our neighborhood's appearance. It keeps our property values so high." She handed me a packet of community guidelines thick enough to choke a horse. Then she frowned at my minimalist black mailbox. "That design isn't on the approved list." "Don't worry, we'll get you a compliant model." I laughed. "It's just a mailbox. Big mistake." A week later, I got my first notice trash bins, visible too long. Then one for the tree I planted. Then another for porch lighting too bright. Each letter ended the same way: "Failure to comply may result in daily fines." It stopped being funny when I started noticing her car. A white Mercedes creeping past my driveway every evening, slow enough to read license plates. Sometimes she'd stop, snap photos, smile. Always polite, always watching. My neighbor Harold, an old engineer with kind eyes, warned me, "You're getting the Karen treatment, son. Happens to anyone she can't control." I tried to shrug it off. I was a security consultant. I dealt with people who weaponized power for a living. But this wasn't business. It was personal. She'd turned order into obsession, rules into leverage. And then she found her opening. When I told her I'd be away 6 weeks for a London contract, she smiled that perfect HOA smile. "Oh, how exciting. Be sure to file your travel notice, and of course leave a key with the HOA. In case of emergencies. Rule 17, subsection 3. Any homeowner absent more than 14 days must provide access for inspection." I hated that rule, but fighting her wasn't worth the trouble. Not yet. Before I left, I double-secured every password, locked, every drawer checked, every camera. My house was a fortress, digital, silent, foolproof, or so I believed. Why? The first alert came 2 weeks in. Thermostat override, master bedroom. Then another smart fridge inventory updated. Someone had added milk. 2 days later, TV active 2 hours 42 minutes. I stared at the screen, heartbeat slowing, not rising. Someone was living in my house. I logged into my private server. The camera feed flickered, stabilized, and there she was. Karen Blake, wearing my robe, pouring wine from my cooler, laughing across the table at her husband Gary. They were barefoot, relaxed, eating dinner off my plates like they owned the place. I didn't rage. I documented. Every timestamp, every log, every thermostat shift. In my world, data is power, and Karen had just walked straight into my system. Over the next few days, I treated my home like a surveillance target. I backed up everything: multiple servers, encrypted storage, triple redundancy. And the deeper I looked, the uglier it got. Karen had rerouted the neighborhood's new security cameras through her own home router. She'd pushed for smart mailboxes, digital keypads giving the HOA emergency access. And she'd created something called the Silverwood Community Initiative, a polite name for a network of control. She wasn't just enforcing rules, she was building an empire. I called Harold. "She's been doing this for years," he said. "Got everyone scared to death." "You can't fight her," maybe I said, "but I can expose her. That night I booked my flight home a week early. When I landed, I didn't drive home. I met my old friend Nick instead, another security guy from agency days. We set up a plan. A van, a uniform, a fake badge that read, Metro Tech Solutions, Community Security Services. Friday afternoon, I called the HOA office through a voice modulator. "This is Kyle from Metro Tech," I said. "We'll be on site Friday for system calibration." Karen's voice lit up. Perfect timing. We're hosting a board meeting that day at one of our model homes. My model home. When I pulled into Silverwood, the sun was sharp and golden, the kind of light that makes everything look innocent. Karen answered the door herself, Pearl's glinting clipboard ready. "You must be Kyle. We've been expecting you." She didn't recognize me, maybe because I'd grown a beard, maybe because people like her never look at those they think are beneath them. "Yes, ma'am," I said, tipping my cap. While she arranged fruit trays in the kitchen, I moved room to room calibrating sensors. In reality, I reconnected every device to my network. Cameras, microphones, the projector in the living room, all mine again. From the hallway, I heard her voice. "Once we finalize the new bylaws, no one can challenge enforcement." Another man added Gary handled the transfers. I smiled under my breath. Gotcha. Hours later, as night settled, the living room filled with board members. Wine glasses clinked, charts shuffled. Karen stood at the head of my dining table, confident as a queen. Under the new initiative, she announced the board will have authority to inspect any property deemed non-compliant. No exceptions. Applause rippled, hesitant but obedient. I sat in my van outside, watching the live feed on my laptop. She had no idea that her kingdom was already mine again. Then one of the men asked, "What about the Cross House?" Karen chuckled. "Oh, Ethan. Don't worry, he's still overseas. I checked his itinerary myself." That was her final mistake. She thought she'd mapped my life down to the minute, but timing is the one variable I control better than anyone. At 9:00 p.m., I switched the system from passive monitoring to active control. The lights dimmed 10%. The temperature ticked up 1 degree, the speakers hummed softly, tiny coded distortions. My signature. Digital fingerprints proving authenticity. Every word she spoke was now encrypted, time-stamped, and archived in triplicate. By midnight, they were drunk on power and Chardonnay. Karen laughed. Honestly, this neighborhood would fall apart without me. People need structure. I watched her on the screen and thought, power always looks calm right before it collapses. The next evening, she gathered everyone again, this time for a community leadership assembly. My living room was packed. Neighbors stood outside, curious, uneasy. Karen took the floor, confident, rehearsed. Tonight, she said, we end the chaos of non-compliance. The HOA will now have full authority to manage all properties. I waited until she clicked her remote for the next slide. Then I executed the command, switch input, external feed. The HOA logo vanished. And there she was on the projector, Karen Blake in my robe, sipping my wine, sitting in the very chair she stood beside now. Her own voice echoed through the room. When you're on the HOA board, you get certain perks. A man's voice off-screen. Gary asked, "What if he comes back early?" She laughed. "He won't. I have his itinerary." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Faces turned white. Karen's hand trembled. "This is fake," she shouted. "He's framing me." That was my cue. I stepped through the front door. The room froze. "Good evening, Karen," I said, setting my briefcase on the counter. "I came home early." She staggered back, her voice cracking. You're supposed to be in London." "I was," I said. But then someone started living in my house. The crowd parted as I walked forward. On the projector, a new clip played, Karen in my office touching my desk, lifting a photo of my late wife, Eleanor. Her lips moved silently, denying pleading, but no one believed her anymore. "This isn't about mailboxes or rules," I said quietly. "It's about trust and what happens when someone abuses it." From the back, Harold's voice rose. "We trusted you, Karen." The room erupted. Phones lifted, recording everything. Karen's eyes darted toward the door, desperate for an exit, but 2 uniformed officers were already there. My attorney, David Chin, stepped in behind them. "Evening, officers," he said calmly. We have a warrant for unlawful entry, property theft, and misuse of HOA authority." Her knees buckled as they cuffed her. The silence that followed was almost holy. For the first time, Silverwood Estates didn't look perfect. It looked real. People whispering, filming, breathing again. As they led her out, she spat over her shoulder. "I built this community." Maybe I said, but order built on fear isn't a community. It's a cage. I stood there, surrounded by the neighbors she'd ruled for years, and for the first time, none of them were afraid to look up. The flashing red and blue lights outside danced across the neat lawns she'd once inspected like a dictator. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just watched as the door closed behind her. Because that's the thing about control, it always ends the same way. The moment you start believing you own other people's peace, you lose your own.